In the fall of 1989, hundreds of thousands of people in Eastern Germany fought for their freedom, a fundamental right denied for over 30 years and enforced by deadly border control. The massive yet peaceful demonstrations in East and West Germany spoke volumes about the hope for a reunited nation, and the dream became a reality with the collapse of the most infamous and tangible landmark of injustice, the Berlin Wall. The road for a reunited Germany was ahead but unpaved. Understandably, the whole nation was emotionally overwhelmed by momentous events and facing uncertain times due to the clashes of cultures, economics, political beliefs, and educational systems. This complex merger left a big question mark for Germany's future and its generations to follow. After a year of negotiations, on October 3, 1990, Germany was reunited. Home to East Germans and West Germans alike, Berlin is again the capital. This now trendy hotspot is the perfect starting point to uncover the historical layers of a divided Germany and to explore its visible and invisible borders. Vera Langsfeld made her beliefs known on a sign at a public demonstration. She, like many other political opponents, was arrested, spent 1 month in prison of the greatly feared Ministry for State Security, and was deported from her country and her family. She immediately returned after the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Es ist eine Aufgabe für uns ehemalige politische Gefangene, hier den jungen Leuten besonders zu erklären, was hier vor sich ging. Also das sieht jetzt einerseits noch völlig so aus, wie es vor 20 Jahren ausgesehen hat. Dieses Haus, diese Wachtürme, dieser Garagenkomplex. Aber was sich geändert hat, sind die jungen Leute da drüben. Ne? Das gab es vor 20 Jahren nicht. Das war hier nur das Personal der Staatssicherheit und die hätten sich auch nie träumen lassen, dass ihr Gefängnis, was ja eine geschlossene Anstalt war, eines Tages mal von jungen Leuten besucht werden würde. Also der größte Gewinn ist, dass es jetzt Freiheit für alle Deutschen gibt. Gerade an diesem Ort ist mir das wichtig zu sagen, dass die Ostdeutschen ihre Freiheit gewonnen haben, dass sie jetzt selbst bestimmen können, wie sie ihr Leben gestalten wollen, dass ihnen niemand mehr Vorschriften macht, wie sie zu leben haben, wohin sie zu reisen haben oder wohin sie nicht reisen dürfen. Das ist ein unschätzbarer Wert. Man muss jetzt auch keine Angst mehr haben, dass man sich in der falschen Stadt verliebt und hinterher dann durch eine Mauer von seiner Liebe getrennt ist. Ich bin überzeugt, dass jeder junge Mensch, der mal hier war und vor Augen geführt gekriegt hat, was Unfreiheit, was Diktatur bedeutet, der wird hinterher bereit sein, die Demokratie zu verteidigen. War schön, dass ihr hier gewesen seid.
Sehr interessant.
The JFK International School in Berlin has more than 1,700 German, American, and other international students in kindergarten through grade 13. Of course, the majority of them were born many years after the reunification in 1990, but today they live without any barriers in their minds.
One thing that's over is the separation of Germany. That's just in the minds of most people, of the older generation by now.
Teaching the recent history of Germany is not only essential for the students' understanding of the formerly divided country, but also for their future as one nation.
It seems to be like a task for me, as a teacher, as a human being, as a former citizen of that state, to tell the students so that they shouldn't forget it.
People need to become aware that because we are reunited, we should all accept each other again. It's not, people aren't really different in East and West. It's just they have a different history, but then also it's our history together, and we just have to accept that it's our history.
The peaceful demonstrations that led to the unification of Germany and the unity of our entire country took place at this place, which makes this all very historical and alive.
This exhibition here on Berlin Alexanderplatz gave us a good insight on how it was during the time of the GDR. For me, the German unity means that mutual understanding of all people and no prejudice against people of another race or of another religion, and just that people live together in a civilized way and treat each other with respect.
Something so fundamentally important in every society was banned behind the Berlin Wall for many years. Today, not only memorials mark the history of a very different and restricted life, but artist Flix, who was born and raised in the West, publishes a retrospect in his comic series, There Was Something.
I had the idea of making this series of comics when I talked to my friends, and I found out they had to tell many small stories and had many memories of the time when Germany was parted. Here on the billboards are my comics big in German, and right next to it is a little version of it in English translated. I'm quite happy that my comics are now here and try to help younger people to get into this part of German history, and maybe it's easier for them, or easier with that, to get an entrance to this and to understand what's happened, so something like the Berlin Wall never happen again.
How did you work with the prejudices that came along with the unification, and do you think they still exist, or is it more like we've really become one country?
I think we are one country, or we became one country, but there's still two different kind of history the people have to live with. And out of this history and out of this past, they act different or think about things different.
About 400 miles west of Berlin, East German history is very much alive in Cologne, where Sven settled years ago from the East. Today he is proud of his Ossi-Laden, which seems to be a mix of a museum and a store. You can browse among groceries, movies, books, and authentic everyday objects from the former Eastern Bloc.
Der Laden ist ja eigentlich da, Ost und West miteinander zu bereichern und nicht miteinander abzugrenzen.
So he came up with the great idea to meet every month with a group of regulars from both sides.
Deswegen sind wir auch da, da ein paar Sachen auch, will nicht sagen gerade rücken, aber aufeinander zuzugehen und ins Gespräch zu kommen. Und das funktioniert. Ja? Also es ist nicht so, wie man das immer hört, Ost und West kann nicht miteinander. Es können auch die Generationen miteinander. Wir haben beim Stammtisch manchmal Leute, da sind Leute dabei, die sind 16, da sind Leute dabei, die sind 70.
Ja, ich denke, das wird über die Generationen hinweg verschmelzen und irgendwann wirklich kein Thema mehr sein. Aber die in der DDR noch groß geworden sind, wozu ich dann auch zähle, die sind einfach geprägt.
Mein Wunsch für den 20. Jahrestag der deutschen Einheit wäre, dass man sowohl Osten als auch Westen ein bisschen die Toleranz zueinander hat, aufeinander zuzugehen und einfach auch mehr voneinander zu erfahren, weil es oftmals Missverständnisse einfach sind.
How true that is. The promotion of understanding between people is also the concept of the DDR Museum in Berlin, where more than 1 million visitors have explored, in a vivid and interactive way, the former everyday life of a long-gone state. Even physically touching the exhibits is strongly encouraged here.
Sehr viele wissen nicht, was die DDR war, dass die DDR eine Diktatur war, dass in der DDR natürlich auch Menschen gelebt haben auf der anderen Seite, die etwas erreicht haben. Und genau diese verschiedenen Seiten, genau die muss man heutzutage zeigen, damit Menschen, die DDR nicht miterlebt haben oder die fernab davon waren, wissen, was für ein Staat das war. Es gibt leider immer noch Unterschiede zwischen Ost- und Westdeutschen und gerade, was mich immer sehr erschreckt, auch bei Jugendlichen, die also die DDR gar nicht mehr selbst miterlebt haben. Das scheint mir davon zu kommen, weil doch viele Eltern ihren Kindern immer noch die Vorurteile aus der Zeit des Kalten Krieges einreden. Das ist natürlich sehr schade. Ich befürchte, wir brauchen nochmal 20 Jahre, bis wir wirklich sagen können, in den Köpfen ist alles wiedervereinigt.
Weimar ist eine kleine Stadt, es sind ja nur 60.000 Einwohner hier, gemütlich, kurze Wege, man kann überall mit dem Fahrrad ganz gut hinkommen.
Having grown up here in Weimar, Sven was ready for something new at age 20 and moved to different cities in the western part of Germany for his studies and work. He did not regret the return to his roots, which came 10 years later, because he is proud of his new old home.
Of course, they had prejudices in their mind. They say, okay, you come from the east part of Germany, everything is dirty, everything is black, and you're underprivileged and you have no education. But this was just in terms of jokes. But in every joke there is a little truth inside. I hope that in 10 years you will find a whole reunified Germany with no borders in the minds of the people and no borders in terms of prejudices.
The city of Erfurt, in the heart of Thüringen, is the new home for U.S. student Anna after having spent 6 months in Cologne. She got to experience firsthand whether or not there is still an East versus West mentality 20 years later.
It's hard to tell from the surface. A lot of things have been changed. The buildings look differently. A lot of money has been put into restoration. But I think one of the biggest differences in the mentality with the younger people under 30 years old. The culture is pretty similar, youth culture in East and West, but I found the biggest difference to be among the older people who actually lived with the divided Germany.
So it is the young generation holding a ticket for a ride that takes them towards a better future with infinite opportunities. 21 years ago, freedom came overnight. 20 years ago, people with different histories, actually complete strangers, integrated one nation. They weren't forced to do that. It was their freedom to choose. The younger generation can be proud of what their parents fought for. They will appreciate that and make old prejudices forgotten by remembering what Germany gained as a result. But one thing is for sure, education is key.